Hi, I'm Lisa K. Donner, along with Joe Schaefer, Sarah Cowgill, Jeff Charles, and Andrew Moran. And this is the Conservative Five, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. On today's episode, A March to Madness, Coming to America, a sequel. Surprise, surprise, madness and mayhem down on the border. We give a once-over to the two new immigration bills and assess the new crisis. Unmasking the masses, many states are declaring they're open for business. Is yours next? And in our kicker segment today, royal rules ruin Markle's fairy tale. Meghan and Harry pulled the race card out of the deck, but are they playing by their own rules? All this and more coming up on this edition of the Conservative Five. Even the leftist media must admit that since Joe Biden took the oath of office, things at the U.S.-Mexican border have gone sideways. It appears that Coming to America 2 isn't just a new movie, but a reality that the Biden administration is trying to wrap its hands around. The latest reports from the border are that 500 unaccompanied children are crossing into the U.S. every single day. Two immigration bills have passed the House and are headed to the Senate for a hearty discussion and perhaps dismembering. It's been 3 decades since a comprehensive immigration reform plan has been passed. The Dems say they are cautiously optimistic about this one. Is this another run at amnesty for all or serious legislation that Republicans will back? For that, we go to our C5 panel. Sarah, let's begin with your perspective from the heartland. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security is saying that the migrant surge at the U.S.-Mexico border is expected to hit a 20-year high. You penned an article this week on the two pieces of legislation. Do they have a chance of making it to the Oval Office where the president's hair-trigger pen awaits?
Well, I mean, it might be a 2-year high because we took 2 years off, basically, with COVID. We were facing this in 2018, and things were ramping up to the point where we were going to be inundated with hundreds of thousands of people. We're inundated with hundreds of thousands of people, and most of them are going to be stuck at the border until somebody can sort out where the heck they're coming from. And that's the two pieces of legislation that are now going to the Senate or being bandied about by the Senate aren't going to help 500,000 unaccompanied minors. They're just not. The Dreamer Act is just the Dreamer Act on steroids, about ready to give amnesty to 2.5 million people. The good news is they've put in a few caveats, like Dreamers have to have a GED or a high school diploma. They must not have felony record anywhere. You know, they've done their due diligence a little bit here, and maybe Republicans might find that an easier pill to swallow. If Republicans had any sense, they'd just no. The one smart piece of legislation, however, and I'm rude to say this, but is the Farm Act, the Farm Modernization Act. It takes all of the men and women who have been in this country performing jobs in the agricultural industry, and it gives them a pathway to legality, not necessarily citizenship, but the right kinds of papers. So, and even that has a few of the stipulations embedded in it. You know, they have to be in the ag industry for a number of years, and they have to have a track record. But it really is a smarter piece of legislation if we're looking at as to the reasons why we want immigrants in this country anyway. We want them to do jobs, skilled labor jobs. And that's what the Farm Modernization Act will do. Easy for me to say, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so I don't think if the Republicans are going to stick to their guns on this, I think they'll bend. As far as I can see, we got rhinos everywhere in the Senate and the House. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised if these two pieces of legislation don't pass without much of a fight.
All right, Joe, do you really think that these two pieces of legislation are going to fix what's going on at the border now?
Well, I agree with Sarah that we got to keep our eyes on the Republicans. They want to go along with a lot of this, is my big fear. Immigration reform has never gone away as something that Congress Both sides of the aisle have wanted to push. The only thing that's kept it from being enacted up to this point is the fury of the American people. They have not been able to get around that one unfortunate snafu in their minds. And I really think we're being set up here, much like with the coronavirus hysteria. These things are very organized. The 2018 migrant caravan was organized. There are NGOs, international organizations busing these people up to our border. They do this in Europe too. Very powerful moneyed organizations, all part of the same network that these members of Congress are part of. And, the Republicans, they want their cheap labor. The Democrats want their future voters. Both sides want this to happen. The only people who don't want this to happen is the American people. And I think we're being set up. I think it's, oh, look at the crisis. It's terrible. It's horrible. We have to do something. Gee, I hate to make you wear a mask. Gee, I hate to have you make us do immigration reform, but this is the Republicans. Gosh darn it, we're going to have to do it. Some kind of sensible immigration reform. You can just see it happening right now. And the American people need to not put up with it, put up a fight, put the feet to the fire of these Republicans and warn them, you are out of office if you do this, and hope it's enough.
Well, Jeff, you're way down yonder in Texas. And so this will immediately impact your state first. What say you?
Honestly, I'm tired of it. It's disgusting to me. I mean, I don't want to hear word one about immigration reform until they actually start taking border security seriously. I mean, until that happens, I have nothing to say about it that would be appropriate for me to mention on this show. Back when they got Reagan to grant amnesty, and they promised that they would talk about that they would take border security seriously. Turns out they were lying the whole time. So this time around, I want to hear about border security first. I want to hear about mandatory E-Verify first. I want that passed first before I'm even willing to even take on immigration reform. I get that it's an important issue, but until we take away the incentive for people to come here illegally, none of this is going to matter. It's just going to be an ongoing cycle, which is exactly what the Democrats and, yes, a lot of Republicans want.
Well, you're a pretty mild-mannered guy, and that's the hottest I've heard you in a long time. So let's go north to the U.S.-Canadian border and see what somebody from Toronto has to say.
Well, we have our own illegal immigration occurring in Quebec. People are crossing from the U.S. into the Quebec border. But when you look at the immigration file, I look at it from an economic standpoint, because one of the basic principles of economics is if you subsidize something, you get more of it. And the United States subsidizes illegal immigration. In Texas, kids get free education. In California, the state gives free health care to illegals 25 and under. New Jersey's handing out driver's license to illegals. In New York, illegals who attend high school for at least 2 years are eligible for in-state tuition. During one of the Democratic debates, I think it was the NBC or MSNBC host asked if the candidates' plans include healthcare for illegal immigrants. And guess what? All of them raised their hands. So these are incredible benefits that make it worthwhile for a lot of these illegal immigrants to venture across South America and into the US, because of course they come from impoverished countries and they would never see any of these benefits whatsoever. When it comes to border security, I think President Trump's plan a couple of years ago was he wanted to slap tariffs on Mexico, and the Mexican government was forced to address the issue by securing one of its southern borders. And that seemed to have a positive effect. And to allude to what Jeff was saying, how Reagan promised amnesty, his successor, George H.W. Bush, also wanted amnesty. George Bush Jr. wanted amnesty. And so a lot of Republicans, except aside from former President Trump, they've all pushed the same Democratic line of just, allowing the borders to remain insecure, and letting all these illegals come and get benefit from the myriad of fruits that the United States offers the country.
Yeah, anybody take this, but quite a change, isn't it, between what was going on at the border when Trump was president and now with Biden? He sent out a lot of signals saying, welcome, come, I'm open, I'm a nice guy, and here we are.
Yeah, you see a lot of the illegals, they're wearing Biden T-shirts when they're crossing the U.S. border. So that shows that, he's sending that message through public relations saying, yeah, we're open, come in, do whatever you want.
And the framing here is very dangerous for what I would call the establishment regime, which at least a couple of us here seem to agree goes on both sides of the aisle. They painted for 4 years Trump as this ogre, this inhumane person keeping these people out, who just want a better life for themselves. Well, now we have this flood tide coming. There's rapes at the border. We know this happens when there's a surge. All these crimes come. People are going to be killed. People are going to die. Who is the true humanitarian here? Someone who has a sensible, secure border, or someone who just, nice guy, friendly Joe Biden, who opens the door to anarchy? And when bodies start stacking up, again, I think they're going to try to guilt trip the American people, but I think the American people are smarter than that. They're going to say, this is a bloodbath that is being caused by false humanitarianism. And that is a bad framing for the establishment trying to tug on the heartstrings of the American people. I think they're smarter than that.
It's only a bad framing, Joe, if the media will tell the truth about it. And they're not going to. They're going to, pat Joe on the head and say, look what a nice old man he is. They're not going to tell the true story. Nobody was telling the true story 4 years ago. And Trump was, but the people in the border towns are really fed up, and I don't see it getting safe for them. I see them being prepared.
Yeah, and not only are they trying to pull on the heartstrings of America, they're trying to deflect blame for the migrant crisis. The Biden administration is responsible for this migrant crisis, for not anticipating what would happen when they start proposing open borders policies in public. But Jen Psaki just the other day was blaming it on the Trump administration. Now, I said in January, they ran on Orange Man bad, but they won't be able to govern that way. They're trying to govern that way, but they're not going to be able to blame it on Trump for very much longer. There's going to be an accounting for this, and it's going to be bad for the Biden administration if they don't get it together.
All right, well, for sure, the immigration plan that Joe Biden first initially proposed when he was a candidate is a total non-starter. But there is a chance that the so-called American Dream and Promise Act and the Farm Workforce Modernization Act, wow, that's a mouthful, could make it to the president's desk, and that would give the Dems quite the legislative victory over this issue. I don't think it's going to change what's going on at the border. That's going to stay a mess. Jeff, I think you were absolutely right to be angry about it. Anyway, it's clear that the border situation turned from well in hand to crisis stage in short order. I can't imagine why. Let's face it, Americans are getting mighty tired of the mandated face coverings. Recently, there's been an unmasking of the masses in several states, and the hysterics and ever-changing edicts from Dr. Fauci aside, people are saying enough already. Meanwhile, the president, glory be, has given his tacit approval to ditching the masks so long as we follow the rules. How nice. The question that lies before our panel today is, will we be able to have our backyard barbecues this summer without the goon squad coming for us? Jeff, your governor just declared Texas open for business. South Dakota never closed, and many other red states have been without restrictions for some time. Do you see any other states ready to follow the leader?
Yes, I do. I think pretty much all of them are, except for the really deep blue states. And I think even they will come around because I think that their residents are getting tired of it. Look, I mean, everybody was freaking out when Governor Greg Abbott said that he was going to open Texas up. Guess what? When I go to my coffee shop where I go to write, I'm still wearing a mask. If I go to the store, I'm still wearing a mask. If I go to a restaurant, I'm still wearing a mask. Why is that? Because these businesses are still requiring masks to enter the store. So this is the free market taking care of it rather than the government. If you want to go to a place that doesn't require masks, you can make that choice, and that's how it should be. I was just in Miami this past weekend, and Florida is an open state, although the city of Miami does have a mask mandate. But guess what? Outside, a lot of people aren't wearing masks. But when they go inside, they put it on. Or if they're in crowded areas, they're putting it on. People, for the most part, are being responsible about this. So the notion that we need all of these mask mandates and we need Uncle Joe to get out there and scold us and wag his finger at us about wearing masks is absurd.
Well, I'm going to have to go to Andrew because he touched on free markets, and that's your bailiwick. Andrew.
No, well, there's nothing more to add because Jeff's right. Nothing's stopping you from wearing a mask, whether it's going to a business or just walking down the street. You see so many people wearing masks in their cars all by themselves. So, but I think another thing that conservative media has not done a good job on is that they're not touching on the coincidence theme of the pandemic and the Biden era. As soon as Joe Biden becomes president, you have all these states suddenly lifting their restrictions and removing their lockdowns. Andrew Cuomo was talking about, how you can't lock down forever as soon as Joe Biden became president. Gavin Newsom is opening up quicker than Cardi B or quicker than you could say Cat in the Hat. So I think Penno Bird, who seems to be our COVID correspondent these days, he did a great job reporting on the World Health Organization, admitting that the PCR tests were useless, that they likely inflated coronavirus numbers. Now, they finally updated the whole PCR test and the way they test patients with coronavirus, and now the cases are coming down. Maybe it's conspiratorial, but it makes you think that, hey, were they inflating the numbers because they want to make Trump look bad or want to blame Trump for everything? But and now that the economies are opening up, the growth is going to occur, jobs are going to be created, just as you saw in the February jobs report, and GDP is going to skyrocket, and everyone is going to claim that Joe Biden was a savior of the day, that his 100-day mask mandate was the cure for everything that we needed, and he's the one who created the vaccines, and he's one who ended the pandemic once and for all. So the media is gonna do that. And one other thing I'd like to say is that the doomers on the left, they kept saying how these super spreader events were going to happen, and you're going to have dead bodies after the Super Bowl, and you're going to have dead bodies in Iowa, and all these things are going to happen. And guess what? You look at all the charts, and all the charts are just coming down in these states that are opening up. And what's interesting too is that if you compare the states had these restrictions, the states that didn't, you look at the numbers when it comes to mask mandates, and the numbers were similar, and nothing really changed. So the scientists and these politicians think they have the answers, but they can't explain why one state has similar numbers that it's open compared to another state that has similar numbers that's closed. Scott Atlas, actually, I'd like to say that he delivered a speech at Stanford University virtually recently, and he went through all the data, and everyone was complaining about how much he doesn't know what he's doing, but you can't deny what he was saying and all the facts that he was delivering.
Joe, I know you've been a big and long time fan of masking.
I'm glad Jeff brought up Miami. I'm here in Palm Beach, and everyone's hailing our Governor DeSantis, and he's done, he's probably been the best on this, but, I don't consider myself a free man. I have to wear a mask every time I go anywhere. If I'm indoors, if I want to buy toilet paper, I got to put on a mask. Hearing about the free market is nice and all, but at some point, when it's been pretty much proven that this stuff isn't working, it isn't effective, can we stop doing this to the citizens, making us do this? And what I find interesting the most is the federal local detachment here. You've got federal people, Fauci, these authorities saying double mask at a time when the American citizens are saying, I'm getting tired, you're pushing me too far. I'm getting tired of wearing this damn thing. And the heat is going to be on these local officials, these governors. Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan, she's backpedaling. I wonder why. She's just like Andrew Cuomo in New York, facing, they're saying possible criminal charges over the way she handled the nursing home situation in her state. When you start talking about criminal charges for local officials, that kind of tends to make them slacken off on their authoritarian tendencies. And nobody enjoyed that more than Gretchen Whitmer. So I think we are at the saturation point, and it's going to be local. The feds are going to be completely clueless. They're going to keep telling you wear 4 or 5 masks. But on the local level, governors, mayors, they're going to be, after a while, the people are going to be so angry, and you have to live among these people. And so that's where I think it's just going to start unraveling in each individual state, and an upset Washington, D.C. is not going to be able to do anything about it.
Sarah, I wonder if we're creating many, many young people to become libertarians. This weekend, we took our family to Orlando, one of the huge theme parks, Universal, which I frankly have been avoiding for the last 20 years. But anyway, we went, and it was wonderful. But it was interesting because the two people we ran into, one guy was standing outside the elevator because they only let families or groups in one at a time, but he was all by himself, no mask, young kid, early 20s. And We said, you're welcome to come in our elevator if you want to. And he said, thanks. And he came in, he said, probably 4 masked Nazis will stop me before I even get to the water taxi.
Well, I seem to see a pattern here, and that is all of you people live in cities. I live in the middle of nowhere. I live in the sticks. Our towns are, the largest town closest to me is 800 people. The next largest town is 33,000. Maybe if you're in the cities, even in the red states, you might, have a more liberal bent. We shut down like good little people when this first started a year ago. We were shut down for 6 weeks. We opened back up. We don't wear masks. We don't care if you wear a mask, if you're old and you think you need one, or if you're just weird and you're wearing one in your car. We don't care.
By the way,
but we don't wear them.
So weird, isn't it? I mean, to see a person by himself in a car.
It is, and it happened. You get some, relatively not bright people following Fauci's rules, but we don't do that. We haven't done it in a year. The only time I've worn a mask is when I was visiting the Donner family in Virginia. That's the only time I've donned a mask since all this started. We don't do that here. We don't do it in the small towns. We don't need to. We don't have an epidemic. You might need to in the cities, but, a blanket edict has only pissed people off in the sticks, in the red states. The silent majority is still grumbling. They're over in the corner. They're receding. They're mad. They're making lists, but this has nothing to do with us. It just doesn't. And so we didn't comply.
The permanent damage is going to happen.
Recommendations, we didn't comply with those.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that, the permanent damage on small business is going to be horrific. You see the growing number of bankruptcies occurring all over the United States. In Toronto up here, they have bankruptcies, on nearly on every single corner in the downtown core. And, I wonder if, maybe Scott Cosenza, our legal affairs editor, could answer this, but could these small businesses ever seek redress against these governments that are forced to shut them down? And these temporary benefits, not going to do much in the end, because you have all the cumulative bills. All these businesses are going to have catch up, and they have the inflationary aspect of all the government having to play catch up, and all these utility companies have to play catch up. So life is going to get more expensive, but I really feel for the small businesses that suffered because of the result of the tyrannical governments.
All right, let's go around the horn real quickly. Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was just going to add really quickly. I mean, a lot of small businesses are shutting down for good. They will not be able to come back because they aren't going to be able to come back from this. And these progressives, I mean, they say they care so much about minorities. This is affecting minority-owned businesses disproportionately. And those businesses, like I said, they're not going to be able to come back, and they're not going to be able to get any recompense from the government. So they talk about how the virus itself is affecting minority communities more, but they're not talking about how it's affecting minority Americans economically.
It's because these white progressives, if they're able to stay at home and work from home, having their lattes delivered, all that stuff, they're not in the real world. They don't have to worry about the small businesses. They can just listen to government, tell everybody to wear your mask, and be the Minnie Mouse that the government wants them to be.
All right, so let's go around the horn. By Memorial Day, who believes that 25%, or no, let's say 25 states, 50% of the United States will be maskless? Joe.
I really can't give you a number. I really like what Sarah brought up, and that Jeff and Andrew just kind of buttressed, is there's an urban-rural divide in this country, and I never really thought of it in terms of the mass consensus. This is the urban-rural divide here. So I think it is going to go that way. If you are on the grid, if you are in a dense urban area, you'll wear your mask forever. You'll do whatever they tell you. It's part of your lifestyle. You're probably a germaphobe. You're not used to walking on the grass with your bare feet. So it's the split in America. These people wear masks forever, and people who are outside of the grid, they want to take them off immediately. And so that's where we are as a country.
All right, Andrew, play ball with me. 50% of the states maskless by Memorial Day, yes or no?
No.
Sarah?
I think yes. I think it's enough of a drain that people running for re-election are going to need to step up their game here. Nobody's going to want to re-elect the guy who put him in a mask. It's like a muzzle.
All right, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm with Sarah. I mean, there is a reason why Governor Gavin Newsom is in trouble right now. People are sick of this. People on the left are sick of this. So yes, for politicians to be able to survive, they're going to have to ease up on some of these laws. Now, again, while they may remove mask mandates, it does not mean that private businesses are not going to still be taking precautions. So yes, there will still be masks, but I think 50% is an accurate number as far as government mandates go.
All right. Andrew, you said no, right?
Correct. Yes. No, I don't think it's going to happen.
I'm with Andrew. The answer is no. So anyway, I'm personally looking forward to our Independence Day barbecue. We plan to celebrate the freedom of a maskless merriment, no matter what state we're in. And always on the 4th of July, we love to play Proud to be an American. Oprah Winfrey hosted a rare primetime show featuring Harry, formerly the prince, and his wife, Meghan Markle. Lord, you would have thought these people were just scraping by. Some say it was the actress's finest performance ever, worthy of an Emmy or an Oscar. Ms. Meghan appeared oppressed, depressed, angry, and looking for justice, all while she lounged in a private villa with hair and makeup folks priming and primping. The angst was potent, as were the not too subtle accusations of a racist monarchy. Even those who usually dial out the royal nonsense found the performance more than a bit tawdry. Our panel was royally divided on the issues that the beleaguered family must contend with, so I'll start with Joe and see if we can keep the discussion on the rails. I know how very fascinated you are with the British monarchy, Joe, but seriously, what say you about the trials and tribulations of privilege and wealth? Also, what do you make of America's fascination with the crown?
Yeah, that's the part I'm interested in. I'm not going to deny I have no interest at all in what's going on with these two. If the British want to subsidize their celebrities, good luck to them. Give them a crown. I don't care. Here in America, we believe in meritocracy, that you rise based on your own that's the myth, at least. But, are we really so much better than the British? We have our royalty. They're not subsidized celebrities. We put them in government. If you want to look at American princes, two fools who are American princes, how about Mario Cuomo's kids, Andrew and Chris Cuomo? Are they not American royalty? They would never have gotten where they were if it wasn't for their last name. This is nepotism. This is who you know. They were anointed by birth for this position that it's clear they are woefully unqualified for. Now, I was seeing that Andrew Cuomo killed people, as his role as New York governor. Chris Cuomo makes a fool of himself on a nightly basis. When he staged that, I'm coming out of my basement from my coronavirus lockdown. I mean, that kind of narcissistic self-absorption, isn't that the pampered, entitled, everything we're talking about with Meghan and Harry right now? So we have our own royalty here in America. I don't want to bring up sports and talk about a big discussion. It's a huge problem in sports today. Everyone talks about Colin Kaepernick, and I don't like the NFL. The NFL was ruined 15 years ago when all these spoiled, rotten coaches' kids started getting jobs that they have no qualifications for except for their last name. And I bring it up because it's so funny to me. It used to be a blue-collar thing. You wear your jersey and your cap and you cheer for your team. And you've got this rich kid's son calling the plays. It just amazes me that, to me, that is American royalty. So, we can laugh at Meghan and Harry, but we've got this here with our politicians, with our entertainment venues. We're stuck with these incompetent royals ourselves. And I hope I didn't go off the rails there.
Okay, Joe, now would you please tell us how you really feel?
Well, I always do that.
All right, Andrew, a GoFundMe page was set up to pay off the mortgage on Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, or formerly Prince Harry's, $14.6 million California estate. But that's gone bust. It's only raised $110. Can you imagine why that would be?
Well, they must have asked Canadians, because Canadians are obsessed with the royal family, maybe because we're all subjects of the Queen Mother. But don't get me started on the Royals. Unless we're talking about the 2015 World Series where they defeated the New York Mets, but that's something else here. It's an antiquated institution. Its history is odious, and its modern day presence it's ludicrous, and it's the personification of privilege. We're constantly told how important they are to the United Kingdom because of all the tourism dollars or tourism pounds. But this is a preposterous take, because who goes to England to see the Queen Mother or the royal family? They visit Buckingham Palace. They go to Big Ben. They go to see Mark Angelides and Laura Volkovic. That's the things that people want to see. They don't want to see Prince Harry or Prince Philip or whoever the other princes are, and duchesses and duchesses and all that stuff. No serious person should ever care what these glorified welfare recipients think. I'm not going to weep for Meghan Markle and her all-time $1 million estate. I'm not going to weep for a prince who broke a fingernail, or whose shoes wasn't shined properly. I share Christopher Hitchens' views on Princess Diana too. I would say that Prince Harry's comparison to Meghan Markle and his mother are correct. They were both infantiles, throwing dramatic temper tantrums and playing the victim despite being privileged and wealthy.
All righty, Sarah, give it a go.
Does anybody like the Royals on this panel? I thought I was going to be the holdout. I come from a very long line, late 1600s of people who turned into treasonous bastards, and I don't care one whit about what Harry or Meghan does. I still trying to figure out what the hell their last name is now. But beyond that, the difference between American royalty, like the Kennedys, like the Bushes to some extent, like the Cuomos, is that it's American. And they go to the top, and when they fall like splat, like Humpty Dumpty. The monarch, they just, shove him off in a corner over in England somewhere, and we don't know anything that happened to him. We don't know how many kids they used to have, or who had 3 ears and 4 nostrils. We don't know, and I don't care to know. I am a 1776 and before kind of girl. I find it amazing that we spend so much time talking about it. I don't know anything about Harry. I remember Princess Diana because I thought she was kind of a hoot. She was a little off her rocker too. I think they all are. If you marry into that family, you're going to be crazy. So, you marry into this as Meghan Markle did, and she goes, I don't want to be a royal. Let's leave. I've had my wedding. Let's go be famous somewhere else. And now they're living with it. I don't care.
But you brought up
I don't care if they go back to England.
Right. You brought up a really important point, and that is, if you marry into this family, I mean, what are you expecting? Jeff, what do you think?
I don't care. I mean, here's the thing. I didn't even watch the interview. I just watched what people said about it afterwards. You know what? I don't, I tend not to dismiss problems just because people have a lot of money. Because, we've seen billionaires commit suicide and go through all kinds of stuff. However, when it comes to Prince Ginger and Markle and whatever these people are, it just doesn't matter to me, and I don't see why we care so much about the royal family on both sides. I don't see why we need to defend Markle or the royal family. Why would we defend a royal family that is covering up for a suspected pederast? These people are not important to me. I'm sure most of them are nice people. I'm sure Markle and Harry have their flaws, and I'm sure in other ways they're decent people. At the same time, this whole thing is just stories like this are completely useless, but if they're at least funny or entertaining, then I'm good with it. This is boring. There's nothing, I can't even figure out a good way to make fun of these people because they're just so dull. Just go ahead. And the idea that they got $110, that's $110 too much. They wanted $14 million. That could have gone to people who actually need it. I don't care if you're not a royal anymore. You're still good to go. You can get some acting contracts. I've heard that they were even talking to Netflix about a deal. So, they're going to be fine. The royal family is going to be fine. And I'd rather focus more on our royalty, not the Kennedys, but the Kardashians. They're royalty too, and they're hilarious.
Don't go there.
I'm sorry, they're funny. They are worth making fun of. These people, I just don't get it. I don't understand.
Well, Sarah will always be royalty to me in my heart.
Aww. Yeah, and that makes me unhappy because I don't want to be royalty. Unless if I was born in the royal family, I'd have been Princess Margaret, because I'd have somebody groom my horses, saddle them up, I could ride all freaking day. They would take care of me when I got done. And then I could go out and party all night. I mean, what kind of a life is that? If you're not going to be the queen, I'd take that, but I don't know any better. All I know is I come from a long line of treasonous bastards, and damn it, I'm proud of that.
All righty. Well, let's wrap this up. Whether you're an avid royal watcher or an apathetic witness with a treasonous bent, and a few are here, the royals have somehow again captured America's attention. And whatever is wrong with permitting ourselves with a laugh at a story and with a story from time to time, we needn't take ourselves so seriously as those on the left so often do. And with that, cheerio to all you American prince and princesses out there. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform, YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble, or on them all. As well, Liberty Nation has its own Roku channel where you can see all our TV productions. Thanks so much for tuning in. And remember to surf on over to libertynation.com. Sign up for our new member zone, just $29.99 for the entire year. That's only 9 cents a day, folks. And thanks so much for watching C5, a production of libertynation.com, conservative news where truth matters.